Well, we have audio, and let me see here. And I need to make this a little louder, but how do I do that? Anyway, guys, okay. Anyway, welcome to Live with Ria. I'm Ria, and my call sign is N2RJ. And if I could just, oops, yeah, always fiddling with something. You know, it's just like one time I had a. It's an interesting conversation I had with an Irishman who was, I was like, I was adjusting my transmitter while transmitter power and audio while I was talking, and then, in a typical Irish accent, he was like, "Oh, you're fiddling." Okay, that was funny. Anyway, yeah. So good evening. It's been a while. I've been up to a lot of stuff, and so I'll tell you a few things that are going on. Some of them I can't really reveal yet, but there are some things I can tell you. So one of them is that I've been going, I've been doing a lot of stuff. With my renewable energy and battery powered gig. So I've kind of, I went to a solar power show in California. Yeah, I know, California. I don't mind California in some respects. It's just, some other respects I don't, I kind of like, even New Jersey is a little better in some respects. But no, I like the atmosphere there sometimes. And I'm probably going to be at a famous trade show in January in Las Vegas, if any of you know what that is. Okay, I'll reveal more about that later on. So yeah, so I've been to that one in the past, and it's a lot of fun. But this time I'm actually going again, so it's going to be a lot of fun. The story with my car, it's kind of been, the car, I got it back, and then, I saw errors on the dashboard about, it's funny, Tesla has a little thing that says turtle speed reduced or power reduced. What happened was there are two drive motors, and one of them in the back got disabled. So one of them was replaced because of the accident. Apparently, there was some problem with it, right? I call it an accident. It is, it's kind of like I hit a big pothole in Long Island, and then it kind of just like the car, just like the wheels went totally, Oni camber style, and then I saw smoke coming out of the brakes. So apparently it damaged some control arms, damaged some other stuff, and then apparently got some body damage on the tow truck, which I'm not too pleased about. So I ended up getting it back. It worked okay, and then I saw the typical, if you know the typical Tesla error sound, and that's like, oh my God, what's happening? And it said power reduced. Okay. By the way, the insurance company was very near to nearly totaling the car. Okay, that was a lot of money in repairs, and then so I just decided, you know what, I try to get it fixed, and then as I was getting fixed, I said, you know what, I don't know, maybe it's time for a new one anyway. So I actually got a new one. I got a Tesla Model Y. So there are people been asking about my Tesla and ham radio videos, and yeah, there is a link to that I'm going to talk about a little bit. So I'm going to try to revive that, but there are a few things different in this car. So anyway, yeah, so I did pick up a Tesla Model Y Performance, and the only reason I got Performance is because I didn't want to wait until January or March to get a long range and then have to deal with this other car that's been an accident, and they're kind of like, it's kind of weird. So anyway, so that's that. Kids are back in school. Kids are in middle school now. Would you believe that? And that's really stuff. I've been doing stuff in church. I've been doing a lot more of my 2A activities as well too. That's really been, I'm doing a lot of training. I'm getting my instructor certification, and so I'll be able to qualify people here too. Picked up a new a new item, so to speak, a new piece. That sounds kind of sus. But yeah, I picked up one that I have to actually go qualify with it now. Some of you I've been talking with on Toad's Discord about that too. So yes, Scott, you are correct. Yes, it is Charlie Echo Sierra. So yeah, I will be there, and I will definitely, you know, more details though. So if you guys are out there, any of you out there, so a blaster channel. You know, I've thought about, today I was at the range, right? And I speak with my friend. So one of my good friends owns a range in New Jersey, Gun for Hire. And he has, he's also an NRA board member, by the way, okay? And Anthony Calandro. So I was talking with him, and I said, you know, maybe I should start up a gun YouTube channel. And he was like, yeah, you know, that's cool. Yeah, Wesley, and that's part of things. So yeah, so that's going to be, the only problem is, you know, YouTube censors. So I'm going to probably have to keep that completely isolated from this channel, because if that one gets taken down and, you know, the censors are going to censor it and take down this one too, which I don't want to have happen. So anyway, I am looking for somebody who's looking to study for a ham radio license for a special project I have coming up, which I can't talk about yet. I have marketing meetings and such like that with some people that for a new something I'm launching, okay? It has nothing to do with the ARRL. It has everything to do with me, and it's something homegrown by me, okay? I also partner with Ham Radio Prep. If you know anybody wants to study for an amateur radio license, I offer 20% off with promo code RIA at hamradioprep.com, okay? But this is different from that. Okay, so I'm going to be starting back making more videos and such like that. Gun ranges on the air. That would be so cool, right? Yeah, so out here in Jersey, I have two ranges I go to. One of them is the Cherry Ridge Range, the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs, and JRPC. And the other one is Woodland Park Range, aka Gun for Hire. So Gun for Hire, they're celebrating their 30th anniversary. And they have been doing, the range is not 30 years old, but the organization where they went, I took my first set of courses back there in like 2012, you know, and if you look at my membership card, I have a really low number on my membership card, right? I don't know if you could see it, C3007. Whereas the newest ones are like 6 digits now. You see, so I'm a member. I'm a low tier member, a silver member, which means I get a few perks. I get like free rentals and such like that. So no gunfire well on the air. Yeah. Interestingly enough, the guy who owns the store, because they have a store on premises, he's a ham, and I met him today, and he's like, yeah, you know, Ria, I watch your channel. I'm like, cool stuff, you know. So he manages the store for Anthony. Anthony and, you know, his business partners own the whole range business, but he hired a manager for the store. It's cool, cool, cool. Yeah, anyway, so I'll talk about that again. But as far as the car goes, so there are a few things that I figured out with this Tesla Model Y. So let's go back a few, and I'll talk about it. Maybe I'll show you a few things about it. One of the things I discovered about my new car is Tank Radio, you're always welcome. Yes, you can. And you know what, Tank? I have to go to Texas because I need to, it's a long story. I need to go to Texas to do something 2A related, okay? So I will be down there. So yeah, so definitely, no, we'll have you as a guest. Anyway, let's see here. Studying for the test got easier. Okay, yes, empty spaces being empty. Cool. Yeah, the phaser channel. You want to know something? We have spotted lanternflies here in New Jersey, and I've been having such fun hunting them down and shooting them. Okay, there goes the monetization for tonight. But I've been having such fun. Nah, they usually restore it on appeal. But I having so much fun taking my bug assault, right? Because I have a yellow bug assault. I go around and you know, I take the bug assault and I hunt down the spotted lanternflies, because the spotted lanternflies, they're such a pest here in New Jersey and also Pennsylvania, because I'm near to Pennsylvania. They are eating things like grape trees, grapevines, and such like that. So there's grapevines that produce grapes for wine and such like that, right? And you know, anything that threatens wine, no, no, no. Okay? I love wine, even though my doctor says I shouldn't drink too much of it, except maybe a glass of red daily, but not too much more than that. So yeah, so I've been eliminating the spotted lanternflies with my bug assault. That's been pretty neat. So yeah. All right. Yeah. So let's see here. Hi Nathan. Tannerite. Yeah. Texas in November. Yeah, I'll be in Texas sometime. My kid's birthday is coming up, so I have to, you know, I'm gonna take him to the range. Okay, they have a Target that's full with birthday cake. Okay. Anyway, so with regard to the car, there are a few things I found out. One of them is that it comes with a new processor for the infotainment system. So Tesla has this whole new infotainment system. They have a screen in the middle, and I could watch Netflix and Hulu and YouTube and such like that. And this uses a new AMD Ryzen processor. So I have to figure out if this thing is going to cause noise, because some of them have really not been all that good. But regenerative braking I found in the Model S wasn't really all that good for noise. And the Tesla definitely has RFI on the AM band. So this is the other thing. The car did not come with an AM radio. It came with FM only. It came with FM, and it came with a whole bunch of internet options, such as Spotify, Tidal, and all of that stuff, okay? And because of that, I suspect HF is going to be a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ride around with my IC705, okay? And you know, I'm going to take a noise profile and see. T-Ray, you know, I'm into some of that. I'm into the dronography too, you know. So as far as the Tesla fit and finish, Tesla has gotten a lot better over the years. My Model S was panel gap city, okay. The Model Y is actually pretty well built, and the interior is really nice, even for, this is supposedly the lower tier of cars, not the new Model X and S plaid, whatever, that are over $100,000. And you know, this is the Model Y, which is still a lot of coin. Okay, it's the most expensive car. You know, it's pretty expensive, but the fit and finish is nice. The kids love it. The seats are nice, even though they're vegan leather. They're not real leather, you know. So it's like pleather, polyurethane or whatever. And but no, the interior is nice, so I like it. The outside's nice. I got the performance trim. The only thing is it has low profile tires, so I need to get a set of snow tires. And yeah, I think T-Ray does have a YouTube channel. My Tesla is not a sedan; it's an SUV. So yeah, it's an SUV. It's a small SUV. So I'm gonna put a tow hitch on it. They have the tow hitch kit that you could get. The RFI, I don't think the RFI is a problem. I drive by radio stations like WABC, 50,000 watts, and no real issues. I transmit my ham station. The only thing in the ham station that gives trouble is that it tends to trip off the GFCI on the charger. So the home charger has a ground fault circuit interrupter, GFCI, okay? And that, and looks like I'm buffering a little bit, but that tends to, you know, the GFCI, RCD, whatever, tends to kind of, you know, cause a problem. So when you transmit, it just switches off, okay? Right. Okay. So anyway, I was just watching the camera. Yeah. Let's see here. So the RFI is coming from, I think it's coming from regenerative braking. So remember, this whole thing with Tesla is not a, it's not a conventional DC drive motor or a conventional AC motor. It's actually a variable frequency drive. If you know engineering, it's what a VFD is. So a variable frequency drive basically varies the frequency of an AC signal into the motor. It's a three-phase motor, right? And then the higher frequency, the faster it goes. So that's how it is. Of course, the big drawback to that is that, of course, if you're doing regenerative braking, it does that in reverse, and it causes RFI because it produces harmonics, and the harmonics from the inverter circuit. So in some cases, in fringe areas, my AM radio was completely wiped out, okay? And that caused an issue. So I'm going to determine that with ham radio. I'm determined to finish that series on the Tesla build, so we'll see how that goes. I would have rather had cloth seats too on it, to be quite honest. I like fabric seats, but apparently leather is the thing. And I did not get the white interior because the white interior, if I wear blue jeans or whatever, it's going to get, damaged quick. Rich, nice to see you there at the Saratoga Hamfest. Yes, I enjoyed my time at Saratoga Hamfest as well. All right. So let's see. The video capture thing, let's see here. Use buffering. And FaceTime HD camera. I get to see this camera. Okay. And I go back to ZV1. I really think the ZV1 with the buffering is not good. So let me see here. Use buffering. Okay. All right. So anyways. It's the inverter. So anyway, yeah. VFD is very efficient and they could do a lot of things with it. The front motor is an induction motor and the rear motor is a permanent magnet. So, that's how it goes. So, yeah. I'm using OBS tonight. I really need to hook up back my ATEM because the ATEM streams so smooth. I really like the ATEM, how it does it. So let me just switch to this FaceTime camera. Okay. Yeah. You see, this is a totally different thing. All the lighting and such is different, right? So anyway, I'll give you a story too about this thing. So if you notice this thing says N2RJ, right? And this has a Texas/Oklahoma connection to it. So my friend Michelle, right? Michelle Carey, W5MQC, she is from YLRL district. She is from YLRL District 5, right? So she is basically Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas and, all those 5 land people. Yeah, that's the internal camera. The ZV1 with the USB, I have to stop using that really. I'm going to go back to using the ATEM. Right now I'm just using OBS. So she gave all of us at YLRL convention in 2018 one of these things, okay? This was, so it's basically a necklace and it has like a little imprint tag of your call sign. I just wear it because, it's conversation starter. I mean, it's not like I'm going to have tea and crumpets with the Queen. Well, the Queen is no more, so I think it's the King now. Or with Biden or Trump or who, they're not kings. So, yeah. So anyway, yeah, as far as RFI goes, I think I'm going to see how I could do. Unfortunately, I don't think I could put a ferrite on it. I have to see if that noise is conducted or radiated. I suspect some of it is radiated, but I suspect a lot of it is conducted. Now, the other thing I found out about the Tesla is that the Tesla has a lithium battery now. So the Tesla Model Y and all the Teslas have a they have a main battery pack that's like 350 to 400 volts, right? And that one drives the motor. However, there is because of not so much regulations, but well, it's kind of regulations because the DOT, Department of Transportation, requires that some things work regardless. Thank you, Richie's Radio Room, for the super sticker. Thank you. That's awesome. So what I'm saying is that how should I put it? One of the things that Teslas have is this 12-volt battery, right? Because they must have something to power things like the airbags and the power windows and all that stuff that really you don't really want to power from a 400-volt battery. So what they do is they have a DC to DC converter, switch mode power supply, and that powers and that charges a 12-volt battery, right? Previously, that 12-volt battery was lead acid, and that lead acid battery, AGM, used to die probably in a matter of a couple of years, okay? And that was a problem because sometimes it would die at the most inopportune time. I had one that died in my car, and I ended up having to jump it from the front and then get it towed to Tesla Service Center to change it. I didn't even realize. Now they have warnings on display. So what they did was they replaced that with a lithium battery. All well and good. Okay, so you have a lithium battery. You know, like how all hams now are using LiFePO4 batteries and such like that. Well, the problem with that is that lithium batteries inherently are higher voltage. So instead of having 12 volts, the battery measured at 15.5 volts with several multimeters, including a couple fluke multimeters that I tried. So they're definitely 15.5 volts. I have to see if ham radio equipment likes it, okay? I might start with a VHF transceiver in there. I'm not really keen on too much of the local VHF scene because a lot of repeaters are more or less dead. But some of them are still lively, but a lot of them have no traffic on them. Yeah, so it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And I'm kind of like, well, let me see what I could do. I'm definitely going to try the 705 for receive. So, I'll tell you what else I've been doing too. I've been doing my radio show / podcast, and I've been rolling it out to different podcast platforms. It's now on Spotify. I talk about a lot of different little things on there, and I could use a buck converter. Yeah, I want to even see if it's necessary because some radios apparently are happy at higher voltage. So, yeah, so I've been doing a radio podcast. I've been doing a radio show on WTWW shortwave, which is a 100,000 watt station out of Lebanon, Tennessee. Now they're a Christian radio station, and they have they have programming, but they have a programming block on Saturdays where they run ham radio programming. They used to have Bob Heil on there, and Bob just kind of got fed up, in terms of like Bob was just too, it just ran its course. Then you have Ted Randall, who owns a radio station, and he has a program called the QSO Radio Show. So check it out. If you're listening, it's on 5085 shortwave, and it's on Saturdays at, midnight UTC Sunday, right, which is Saturday evening, Central Time, 7 p.m., Eastern Time, 8 p.m., okay? So Central Time, 7 p.m., and then I think when we do daylight saving, it's going to change. So I do that, and sometimes I have guests on, and sometimes I just don't have, I just talk. Now, the other thing is, I talk very openly and honestly. There are some things I say there I don't even say on YouTube, okay? I also have the show on a podcast, and the podcast I publish, so it's going to be on Spotify, and it's also on, on other stuff. Thank you, Russ, for the $20 super chat. That's amazing. You are amazing. Yes, thank you, Russ. All right, yeah. So maybe I'll buy some for the kids for their birthday with that. Something else, their their birthday's coming up. So that's some of the things I've been up to. I've been attending Hamfest. Uh, I attended this New England Division convention, which is the how should I put it? The Ham Exposition, right? Ham Exposition in Marlborough, Massachusetts. They were pretty darn good, and I'll be doing that next year. School started back, so I'm kind of working with the local Sussex County Charter School. Probably going to start back attending their radio club meetings to help them out. I've been helping somebody who probably wishes to remain anonymous. I have a little project with the Civil Air Patrol in New Jersey, right? And so Adi basically is kid number 1, okay? So he's he is my son. Yeah. So the other thing is I want to see if I could work on an ARIS contact for my kids' school. I'm actually talking to the principal, Mrs. Giordano, Sandra Giordano. She is the new principal. Well, not so new. She's been there for like a year and a half now. And she is going to work with me on that. And then, hopefully getting the science teacher, they have a new science teacher up to speed. Hopefully I could get that science teacher licensed. Okay, so she could license and spread it with ham radio. The reality is that, as much as I like to help and I like to do things, I can only be in so many places at once. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be trying to bring people up and level them up that they could continue the goodness of amateur radio, by themselves. Of course, I'll be there to bring resources in, and there are a lot of people who can help out. Anthony, my friend, who's an NRA board member, he says each one reach one, which is my approach in amateur radio too. There isn't 15 of me. No. No, there isn't. So, yeah, and this new thing with EcoFlow, I'm kind of wearing their shirt now. That's going to keep me pretty busy. I'm doing a lot of stuff with them, helping them develop products and such like that too. So, yeah, cool stuff. All right, so let me shift a little bit to RFI, okay? But let me tell you a little bit, before I do that, I'm going to talk about what I talked about at QSO today. So I did the QSO Today Virtual Ham Expo, and I talked about, and a lot of clubs are asking for this presentation now, right? Yeah, so Douglas V, EcoFlow is up and coming. I'll tell you what the deal with EcoFlow is. So EcoFlow's founder is a guy named Bruce, and Bruce basically designed all the BMS for a popular drone company that begins with a D and ends with an I and has a J in the middle. So Bruce is a very, very smart guy when it comes to batteries and such like that. And he founded this company called EcoFlow. And they make portable power stations. They make now home batteries and such, and there's a lot of products in the pipe, some I can't talk about yet. But yeah, no, they're really getting out there. One of the products I helped with extensively was a smart home panel, which is where we take the output from the power stations and put it into your house, and you kind of like have a power wall on wheels. Okay? No, I don't think it's vanadium flow. We have lithium iron phosphate. So a lot of the newer, bigger batteries are lithium iron phosphate, LiFePO. Yeah. So so I've been doing stuff with them. So anyway, let me show you a little bit of the QSO Today Ham Expo, and then we could talk a little bit about the RFI aspect of it, because I want to tell people exactly what's been going on. And also relay some personal experience, especially working with the ARRL lab. Okay? Remember, this is an ARRL show, but I do have considerable experience dealing with things in the ARRL sphere. Okay? All right, so Cameron keynote here. And, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I tell people I like being green. But you know what, that's okay, you know, if you're not really So one of the things I talked about here was determining your power needs, right? HF radios are typically not high power, but when you're running them on batteries, you have to budget every watt. And some HF radios pull almost 200 watts to produce a 100 watt output. Each VHF radio could pull up to 100 watts. And that kind of hit home because, you know, I've been trying to power those with batteries, either straight batteries or with the portable power stations. And I've been getting quite an education on that, you know, so it is pretty interesting here. Let me fix this, right. So computers especially, remember I talked about the Evolve 3 Maestro. Some of them are, you know, anywhere from 25 to 500 watts. Some of them are more, but a typical shack PC, what I found is that for amateur radio, you really don't need a lot of compute power. Even for things like FT8. Now, there are certain exceptions, okay? Like, for example, if you're running JTDX, you definitely probably need a little bit of horsepower because when it does its decoding, it actually does a deep search, and that takes a lot of CPU power. If you're like me and you're a sadomasochist and you like the power, you run an amplifier. I have my Power Genius, and that thing will push out 2,000 watts plus. Okay. The well pump. So surprisingly, well pumps are actually not really that big of a power hog, but well pumps are 240 volts because you have this long wire going down a well casing. My well is 250 feet, and you know, you have that 250 feet. You're going to have a bigger voltage drop at 120 volts versus 240 volts, where you lessen the voltage drop, right? Percentage wise. So they do that so they could use thinner wire, save wire costs, and also reduce voltage drop. And a lot of these systems now have been doing you know, they've been running 2 power stations to power like a 240 volt load. I noticed one manufacturer, Zender, claims they're doing it with 1. You know, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so, you know, this is some of what I talk about. So with this comes some new RFI challenges, okay? And let me bring up the keynote again here and see here. Yeah, oh, by the way, so I use these things. I use the kilowatt to monitor individual appliances, and I use a sense to monitor the whole house, okay? And this is sense here, right? Let me see what you talk about. I'll probably give this whole presentation live. I'm going to throw it up on the YouTube channel, you know, once the on-demand is complete at QSO today. Okay. Yeah, a bunch of stuff here. So RFI considerations, right? So here you have, you know, my flex radio here on 17 meters, and I took great pains to reduce the RFI out of these, okay? So if you notice here, you hardly see any RFI, and that's not accidental. What I ended up doing was I ended up doing a few things, right? One of them was I took the wires that are going to solar panels, and instead of where you have like a gigantic loop that acts like a loop antenna, right? I made it so that it's just like, you know, a pair of wires going to the solar panels and a pair of wires coming back, okay? So you eliminated that. And when I was coming back, I made sure I twisted the wires together, like twisted pair. if you've ever taken apart a Cat5 cable for a computer, okay, you'll find that inside them are individual pairs of wires in a twisted pair. And that's not by accident. That's not to make it look pretty. That actually tends to cancel out some of the RFI because you add capacitance on the line, okay? And when you add capacitance, you tend to block out signals from radiating, okay? And then I'll talk about solar controls in a minute. And then, once you do that, that eliminates a good bit of RFI. But you go one step further. You take some mixed 31 ferrites, and then you connect those on a cable, and you do, I think is, in one case on the AC lines, I did like 10 turns, right? And then on the individual solar leads, I actually put like 3 or 4 turns, through just to make it, just to break up that, okay? So all of this I actually got from a wonderful QST article that I found, and I'm going to find that here now, from ferrite, right? And ferrite, can home solar power and ham radio coexist? Okay, this is not like these hippie coexist bumper stickers, which I think are total nonsense, because all these religions will never coexist. Okay. But yeah, let me see here. Chrome. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. All right, and the video capture. There we go. Okay. Can home solar power and ham radio coexist? What do you think the answer to that is? The answer to that is surprisingly yes, because there are some things you can do, okay, that can help your solar panel, your solar system coexist, right? Right, so Tony Brockfisher K1KP, and you could read this at ferrite.com. You just look for it here. And you see he has a big solar array, right? And he talks about the whole system where it has an MPPT controller. So the MPPT controller is much more efficient than the old PWM controllers. The PWM controllers are choppers. What they do is they modify the duty cycle of a current in order to make it, appear to have less overall average power, right? That is a little inefficient. It's better than nothing, but it's inefficient. The MPPT actually is a variable DC to DC controller, and what it does is that it will take an input, it will basically start off at a certain point on a solar panel, present a certain load to the solar panel, because remember, a solar panel is what you call almost a pure current source, right? So the solar panel now has a maximum power point where the voltage is at a certain point, and then the current meets that voltage at that certain point, and it just starts to drop off. So the MPPT controller now will hunt for that point, and it will try to find that point, and when it finds that point, it stays there. Of course, as light varies on the solar panel, that point will change, and then the controller will track that. So that's why you call maximum power point tracking. Okay. These things are good, but the problem is being switching power supplies, switch mode power supplies, DC to DC converters. They can produce a lot of harmonics, some of them which will end up in the HF band. So basically, they bleed over into the HF bands. Some of them I've kind of seen. I know Genison is popular among radio amateurs, so the Genison controllers seem to be pretty good. I'm going to evaluate some of them. Some of the Victron ones are actually not bad, okay? Some of the Victron ones are not bad. And they're, they're good. I have EcoFlow Power Kits I'm evaluating. I have not really tested that for RFI. The thing about EcoFlow is for these bigger ones, they've actually encased the MPPT in a metal box and grounded that, so that kind of, mitigates some of the RFI. But I still found that I had to put ferrites on the output leads to get it to work. So anyway, that's just an aside, right? Okay, so his problem is now, so one of the things I spoke extensively with a company called Solar Edge, and Solar Edge has what they call optimizers, okay? So so the problem with solar is that you have all these panels in series. When one gets shaded, it tends to block some of the voltage from the other panels. What the optimizer does is the optimizer is a DC to DC converter and will attempt to bring the voltage up to a certain level and match it with the rest of them, so the inverter actually sees, like, you know, it thinks that all these panels are still receiving full sunlight, right? And it prevents a blocking of the voltage. So these are efficient, but again, you introduce another DC to DC converter, so that tends to introduce more noise. So you see here what I was talking about, right? Where he has the whole thing looks like a loop, right? The series DC connection forms a loop. Okay? And then what he did was he made it so that it's no longer a loop, where you have basically two of them, and of course you use more wire for this, and they go down toward the end and they come back like Christmas tree lights, okay? Or string lights, okay? That's the correct term for them these days, string lights, okay? Because not everybody celebrates Christmas. But anyway, yeah. So let's see here, right? So that's one start. And you notice he twisted the wires, okay? And then Solar Edge, actually, they're very innovative in the power space. They're an Israeli company, and you know, I actually spoke to them at the Solar Power Expo. So yeah, so basically he has the DC leads from the optimizers going into these ferrite beads here, okay? And he did like 10 turns of 3 conductors spaced 12-inch apart and the conduit to the inverter. And then after the inverter, you notice he has here, so the box or the trough, it didn't have to be metal, it could be anyone, but usually these troughs are metal. They call them wireways, okay? I use them in installing stuff. He put all of these ferrite beads here, right? And in solar, you usually send your output to what you call a production meter, which measures your solar output, because you're tying back to the grid, and you want to measure that so that the power company can credit you automatically, okay, for the thing here. So yeah, and here you can see some of the things he did. He put the 3 turns of number 10 wire on the beads, and he did this between every solar panel. The idea was to break it up, okay? Because remember, nothing cannot radiate without an antenna. And if you have a choke here, basically you don't have an antenna, you have a choke, right? And this is how we install them. So these are things you might have to watch out with solar if you do ever get solar installed. I know a lot of people are doing it now, especially next year with these new tax credits that are coming. A lot of people are going to be getting solar. One thing I do have to caution you is that when you're dealing with neighbors, you need to be careful, because I was actually dealing so that filter is not a commercial line filter, okay? That is a ferrite bead, and that's kind of like a homebrew thing. So basically, he used a mixed 31 ferrite bead, and he put 3 turns through it, and then he puts the solar connectors on the edge, the MC4 connectors, and it'll work. Okay, it'll reduce the RFI significantly because it chokes it off. Yeah, so one thing I got to caution is that a lot of people are getting these solar installations, and of course they're not hams, right? They don't care about RFI. You know, they really don't. They have no reason to care about your RFI. What they do care about is that they're saving money on their electric bill, and the solar has enabled them to do that. Unfortunately, it may come at the expense of your ham radio hobby or service, or your ham radio application. So what you want to do is you want to be cordial and courteous with your neighbors. Always ask their permission before doing measurements on their property. That is going to be a little dicey. I hope you're friends with your neighbors if they ever put up solar panels. And try to work through the company. The ARRL lab will help to some limited degree, right? I don't think they will go to bat for every radio amateur. When I spoke to the lab, I spoke to Ed Hare about a few things. He has a good relationship with a lot of these solar companies, especially like Solar Edge and stuff like that. And they have been helping to mitigate some of these, okay? So, they'll use their contacts, they'll use their leverage, they'll use their cooperation for good things. So, just cooperate. Other sources of RFI that are coming into the house these days, okay, apart from solar and renewable energy. Electric cars themselves kind of are, there. I notice that I get RFI when I'm charging, right? But it's kind of like a broadbanded hash. I haven't gone and tried to ferrite the charging connector, because the charging connector basically sits on a wall. I haven't tried to ferrite that yet, but I suspect I will be. But that thing has some heavy gauge wire. It has like four gauge wire, because it's like 60 amps. Thank you, Amrad Podcast, for the super chat. That's great. Thank you. I wish I could put comments on screen, but yeah, always appreciated. So yeah, great. Amrad Podcast. That sounds interesting. Let's see here. Is there any appliance or devices that can be wired to DC voltage instead of AC voltage in the home? So, one of the things I've been tracking is the changes to the National Electric Code, right? So the National Electric Code has kind of, I would say, almost been moving in that direction, particularly with respect to lighting. They've actually allowed the minimum branch circuit size for lighting to go down to, I believe, 8 amp circuits, and you could use 16 gauge wire, okay, in the 2023 revision of the National Electric Code. I don't know if DC is going to be next, because there's still this fear of DC. Apparently DC arcs a whole lot more dangerously than AC, right? Especially those of you who do welding. You'll know that your MIG welder and your TIG welders that do DC, they produce a different type of arc. So even for solar wiring going into a house, it must be within metal conduit. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be anything DC, but it'll be nice if there are some things that are DC. I'm sure Thomas Edison would be thrilled. Yeah, exactly. It stays arced. It doesn't, it doesn't vary in amplitude, right? So, because AC has a cycle, whereas DC sustains an arc, right? So yeah. So but as far as DC appliances goes, I mean, I don't know. I don't think we'll ever get there, but I think we're getting there in some things. Probably. I think honestly the first one to go would be lighting. I think lighting would be logical, but you have to figure out, I mean, that's probably way in the future. I don't think right now. I think alternating current pretty much is here to stay, right? Because as long as we do things grid scale, right? As long as we have things that are utility scale, that we are definitely going to be having AC, okay? Yeah. Yeah, I think so. You can have lighting run on DC. Yeah, because you don't have switch mode power supplies anymore. The thing is, though, switch mode power supplies have gotten so cheap. And, you have robots building them, and you build them in factories in China or something, and, they're just like LED bulbs cost less than $1 to produce now, even with the DC-DC converter. And some of them are just so simplistic now, Yeah, so I don't know. But the 2023 NEC I've been looking at because of, the whole solar thing. We've kind of been, looking at the code changes and that too. They're really getting crazy with this arc fault stuff and ground fault stuff. They're mandating arc fault breakers everywhere pretty much. So anyway, yeah, so other things that will bring RFI into your house. I noticed some people complain about HVAC, like some of their variable speed compressors. So some of the newer variable speed air conditioning, I know it's Carol Milazzo, KP4MD, she is in California. She had, and she was in Puerto Rico for a while too, by the way. She's been having a problem with one of her new mini split AC. So our new mini split AC began to spew RF all over the band, right? And the only way for her to take care of it was to turn it off, which is probably not going to be an option in the summer in some places, particularly in the south or the desert, like Arizona, okay? So, I don't know, you got to watch out with that. Probably some ferrite beads might cure it, probably not. I mean, those things, sometimes it might be just better to avoid it. Yeah. Sorry, Russ, I had to approve that one. Yeah, I squared R law is, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yep. And back in the early days of electricity, homes, they tried DC. Yeah, so that was Thomas Edison versus Nikola Tesla and Westinghouse, okay, versus Westinghouse. And of course, Thomas Edison, the Battle of Currents, War of Currents, basically, he killed all sorts of things in public, including an elephant, to show people that alternating current was dangerous. Meanwhile, he wanted to have a coal-fired power plant every few miles in order to power DC-powered homes, So, yeah, and then Tesla said, no, we could do this with AC, and then eventually we went to distribution. So, Edison was definitely a hack. I have no love for Edison, even though, he's famously associated with New Jersey for some reason, right? We named a town after him. I think he had his lab here, but, I don't know. He was a good businessman, okay? Yeah. So the Edison was cruel. Yeah. So the first transmitters, yes. So the first transmitters were actually well. Let me start back. The first transmitters were spark gaps. So basically two balls, right? Two big metal balls, and they put a spark between them. That was spark gap. Then you had the rotary spark gap, which had like a rotating disc, I believe it was, that would produce a spark gap, and that produced a smoother spark. Then you had later on when they began to do continuous wave. Back in those days they weren't really electronic as they were mechanical, so they began to use alternators. So there is an alternator called the Alexanderson alternator. Let's see if we could find it. They actually fired us up, Alexanderson alternator, right? And they actually have the call sign SAQ for it, okay? And they had this big alternator, and even so, it was, low frequency, but it was 200,000 watts, and it's at the Gramton radio telegraphy station in Sweden, and they actually fire it up every year for an annual commemoration. Let's see here. Alexanderson alternator. Okay, yeah. And let me see if I could show you this here. I gotta figure out which one. Chrome. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah. So it's the Swedish very low frequency station in Grimton, grammaton activated during the 1920s. Okay, so they had it to link between Europe and the East Coast of the United States. So yeah, hey, look at this massive thing. This is how we used to generate radio waves. Okay, that was crazy. That was crazy. So yeah, and the noise. Yeah, so this is the only one that's operational, and they have like all of these, high towers here. Usually at the beginning of July. Okay, I think some of them they do at Christmas. Reginald Fessenden, who I did a video on, he actually started to, I believe he did some transmission with alternators as well too. But yeah, so they send a whole lot of things here. You can actually listen to them, if you have a good SDR or something that goes down, or you can use a web SDR. Okay, so the Alexanderson in Switzerland, right? See, Google Translate, yay! Right, they're happy to welcome. Okay. Yeah, and then they have it there. Probably sent it from Morse Key, Brampton, Sweden. Let's see, they had stations who listened in North America too. Okay, see if there are any up here. Oh, there's one nearby here. Who is that? KC3AWJ. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Nice. 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 Cool. See. Maybe I will try to do a live stream if they come back on. T-Ray, thank you very much, T-Ray. T-Ray is probably the biggest fan of this channel. Always appreciate T-Ray. And let's see here. T-Ray. And then Base Angler 73, thank you very much for the super chat. That's great. Yeah, you see? You see the super chat on screen. That's crazy. So anyway. Yeah, so let's see here. The Alexanderson alternator listeners map here. Right? And they have a whole bunch of videos. I don't want to play any of them because of copyright, but you get the idea. So anyway. All right, well, look, that has been a very fun excursion, a little potpourri. I want some topics, so I think probably I'm going to see what I could cover. I have some guests coming up. If you listen to the last podcast, I talked a lot about a lot of things about the changing face of disaster response. And one of the things that we notice is a lot of traffic's going digital, okay? And a lot of it is going digital, going to WinLink and such like that. And people saying that for Hurricane Ian, they didn't notice much on the VHF UHF repeater. So yeah. And that's because everybody's probably using digital. WinLink, WinLink is superior in many aspects to VHF, UHF digital. Not digital, VHF, UHF, FM, because you can actually send like emails and spreadsheets and such like that. So on a personal note, my mom did suffer through the hurricane. Her house got a little bit flooded. She lost power for a bit. Thankfully, she had a EcoFlow Delta battery I gave her, and she, she was able to run her Wi-Fi router and a couple of lights, and then she got it recharged. I think my brother went and recharged it at his job and then brought it back home. So always good stuff to have. All right, my friends. Well, listen, this has been Live with Ria, and I'm going to be doing some more videos on the channel, and we'll see how that goes, okay? Until next time, this is Ria saying peace and 73s. Wait. Hold up. Okay, I cannot let this slide, okay? Ron Walensky said he upgraded to extra. How freaking cool is that, okay? Ron. Awesome. All right. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys later. Peace in 73. I'm not going to replay the whole bumper. I'm just going to, yeah.